And I want to focus, as I've said, on childcare as an illustration of how the government could have done better and could have ensured that we would build back better. As the spokesperson on children and childcare for Labour, I've been contacted by a number of parents already, and I know this is quite a widespread issue, concerned about increases in fees, about the requirement that they would be charged a deposit to hold a place for their child, where a child has not even yet taken up a place in childcare, and indeed parents whose creches have closed and who are really very, very anxious indeed and very distressed about trying to find childcare provision in the autumn, when hopefully we will see a more widespread return to work. Childcare is a defining test for this government, in my view. The provision of adequate childcare is a crucial test and a defining test. What we've seen over recent weeks instead, unfortunately, has been a floundering around, a tampering with the margins of childcare. Some with money, very welcome funding being addressed, but no attempt to address the basic problem with the system of childcare, which is that it is based on a private model, a private provider model, a laissez-faire model, where central government has failed over decades to take any responsibility for childcare provision on a universal basis. And in our manifesto in the dim and distant past, in January, when we were all facing into the general election in a very different climate, Labour called then for the need to move to a universal public childcare system. We recognise that we have 300,000 children of preschool age in this country, 2/3 of whom prior to the pandemic used some form of childcare, but it was all largely done on an ad hoc basis. And I do want to pay tribute to Minister Zappone, who did seek to introduce a more streamlined system. But talking to experts in the area, talking to frontline providers, and as a parent myself and a former user of childcare services, the problem remains that we don't have joined-up thinking across government, and we don't have the sort of investment we would need to see to really change the model of childcare. As a result of which, in response to queries raised by me with Minister O'Gorman just this week about cost of childcare, about deposits, about creche closures, the response has been simply that services are requested to avoid charging fees and deposits, that services are requested to do this and not to increase fees and so on. There's no sense of government taking responsibility for the provision of childcare, as we should see, in order to ensure that parents can get back to work properly and that children have access to the services they need. And indeed that staff in the sector are adequately paid and have decent conditions. And SIP2 recently produced research based on a survey of childcare workers showing just how precarious and how low paid the sector is for those who work within it. So, Minister, I'm conscious that the Department of Children has announced funding. They say totalling about 300 million in terms of the various measures that are being put in place to support childcare providers and to support them in reopening. But what I'm saying is it's simply not good enough. I do recognise that providers are really struggling, that they're doing their best to ensure there is a service available for parents, but parents are being let down, staff in the sector are being let down, and most importantly, children are being let down by the failure to emphasise childcare and a failure to provide really a real radical review and revision of this area. So I'll be continuing to press on that point. Could I just raise a number of other points in relation to this bill, Minister, just looking through it, and I know we'll be addressing them more at committee stage, and indeed we have some amendments in too. On a specific issue that's been raised with us in Section 2 of the bill, which amends Part 7 of the Emergency Measures Act 2020, a new Section 28B is provided for in respect of the new EWSS. There's a concern that has been raised with me by a number of directors of small arts companies that they were eligible under the TWSS, but the new provision will exclude proprietary directors. And we want to know, will they be, this is going to be a major change and will have a serious impact on individuals. And I want to know, Minister, can we address that? And finally, on the Section 9 provision on the increase for the subsidy for bicycles. As a lifelong cyclist on the Cycle to Work scheme, I hugely support that scheme. I've been pressing for many years now that we should have a bike to school scheme where we would see similar subsidy for children. We need to ensure that children have access to bikes and are encouraged to cycle, and it should be, again, a big part of a really radical review of the way in which we run public services and the way in which we run our society. An missed opportunity in this bill, Minister. We welcome the stimulus, but it did not go far enough.
Thank you, Senator.